Hey y'all, how you guys doing today? Hey, it's me, Chet here, just enjoying the day today, and wanted to do another message today regarding a certain thing that I've been wanting to talk about for a while. I have a question for you guys. Do you guys think that we're all under one accord at this present time? The answer to that question is I believe totally we're not. And I feel that so many of us are scattered among different doctrines, different beliefs, different names of the Almighty, that I don't think we're all under agreement. But again, none of us have it correct. I don't believe none of us are perfect, of course, because we've been so deceived by what we were taught in our previous self that now we're just in the process of finding the truth of what this walk is really about, and we need to be under one accord, under the same page, in other words. So I wanted to do a message about that today. I'm making a reel here because it seems like they don't really delete my reels. It's more like my live stream. So I thought I'd try this first and see how it's going. And I also want to let you guys know I did restore my YouTube channel. It's called Knowing Truth. It's on YouTube. You guys are welcome to check it out. I did send a post about it. If you guys want to check out videos, teachings, and stuff like that, you guys are welcome to do that. So I wanted to point that out. So I have 4 scriptures today I was going to do real quick because I didn't want to make this too long. But I wanted to encourage you to know that we need to be under one accord. We need to be under the same agreement, under the same ruach, because a lot of us are not. I know we're scattered among this whole world. We're set apart. We need to come together under one unity, under one accord, and that's what it's about. So the scripture I only got 4 today, so it's not going to be very long. I'm going to go into 1 Corinthians 1, chapter 1, verses 10 through 17. So I'm going to go there, which is 1 Corinthians, chapter 1, verses 10 through 17. Of course, I'm using the Magala, which is the one I prefer to use. It's only online. Let's start off in verse 10. It says, "And I appeal to you, brothers, by the name of our Master Yahushua Messiah, that you all agree and that there be no divisions among you, but that you be knit together in the same mind and in the same opinion." We have to be under the same mindset and also the same opinion when it comes to being in one accord and unity is what it's saying. And there be no divisions. But how many divisions is there in this platform? So many of us are complaining, debating, bickering, putting each other down. It goes against what it just says here. We all need to be under the same mindset. Okay? And it says here, verse 11, "For I have been informed concerning you, my brothers, by those of the house of Chloe, that there are strifes among you." There is. So many people cause strife. It says, "What I mean is this, that each of you, one of you says, I am of Shaul, or I am of Apollos, or I am of Kaf, or I am of Messiah." In other words, who do you really believe? Do you believe Paul, Peter, Apollos? Who do you really worship? Some of us don't really worship Yahusha. You either worship Yahweh, you either worship Jehovah, or you either worship Yahweh, whatever this name is. In other words, that's what it's talking about. You're worshiping other mighty ones. Some of you are doing that, I know, because I get requests from that. I get things like posts send me with those names. I delete them because that's not his name. That's what it's talking about here. Who do you really represent? And that's what it's saying in there. But then it says in 13, "Has the Messiah been divided? Was Shaul impaled for you? Or were you immersed in the name of Shaul? Were you baptized under the name of Yahusha or Paul?" Is what he's saying. You have to make sure you're under the right name and who you're really worshiping. It says, "I thank Elohim that I immersed not one of you except Crimson and Gaon, that not one should say that I immersed into my own name. Now I did also immerse the household of Stephana. For the rest, I do not know whether I immersed anyone else." And then verse 17. Okay, 17 says, "For Messiah did not send me to immerse, but to bring the good news, In other words, he wasn't called to baptize anyone. He was called to preach the word, the scriptures. That's what Paul was. Okay. He says, for Messiah did not send me to immerse, but to bring the good news, not with wisdom of words, that the stake of Messiah should not be nullified. What's the stake? What he hung on, right? So that's verse 17. So it's pretty self-explanatory. We need to make sure that we are under the same accord, the same mindset, the same belief. That we're worshiping Yahusha and no other name. That's the name that's above all other names. We know that, okay? So that's basically what it's talking about. All right, now let's go to Acts. Book of Acts. That's the next one. So the book of Acts, we're going to chapter 2, verses 1 through 11. Okay, we know what this is, if some of you are familiar with this. I want to go ahead and read it real quick. It says, and when the day of the festival of weeks had come, they were all in one mind, in one place. They were all on the same page, one accord. And suddenly there came a sound of the Shamaim, as of rushing mighty wind, and it filled all the house where they were sitting. And there appeared to them divided languages as of fire, and settled on each of them. They were being baptized under the Ruach at this point, because they're all under one accord. They're all in the same mindset. And they were all filled with the set apart Spirit, and began to speak with other languages. And the Spirit gave them to speak. The Ruach will do that for you. The Ruach will teach you. The Ruach will give you that gifts. The gifts that Yahusha or Yahuwah gave you. That's why you don't leave them on a shelf. Okay? Let's continue. And it says, now in Yerushalayim there were dwelling Yahudim, dedicated men from every nation under the Shamaim. And when this sound came to be, the crowd came together and were confused, because everyone heard them speak in his own language. They didn't get it. They didn't understand, because they were under the Ruach. They haven't received that yet. And they were all amazed and marveled, saying to each, look, are not these who speak Galileans? And how do we hear each one in our own language in which we were born? You know, it was under the language because of the Ruach. It says in 9, Parthians and Madi and Alomith, and those dwelling in Aram Naharaim, both Yehuda and Cappadocia, Putan and Asian, both Phrygia, Pamphylia, Matzarim, and the parts of Libya around Cyrene, visitors from Rome, both Yehudim and converts. Cretians and Arabs were here. We hear them speaking in our own languages as the great deeds of Elohim. So they were speaking in tongues, in other words, that other people could understand them. So there is a gift of tongues. Okay, I do believe that. But like the Christian teaches, you know, if you don't speak in tongues, you're not saved. That's a bunch of crap. Not everybody has the gift of tongues. You know, we all have our own. Okay, so that was Acts 2. All right, let's go to John 14 next. That is 5 through 31. Okay, so let's go to John. New writings here. Or Yochanan. Let's start in 14. Starting in 15, verse 15, all the way to 31. Now, listen to this. This is very important. He says, if you love me, you shall guard my commands. And I shall ask the Father, and he shall give you another helper to stay with you forever. Who's the helper? The Ruach. Right? He says, the Spirit of truth, whom the world is unable to receive. So people of the world can't receive this. You have to receive Yahusha before you can receive the Ruach. And he says here,